It was bound to happen. I've got sources telling me that Wren Baker is definitely becoming fed up with Neal Brown and his excuses. That's the topic. Stick around.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul, your host. This is another edition of Locked On West Virginia, brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with 150 in bonus bets. That's if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Go there to get started. And thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first or last listen of the day, depending on when you're listening to me, and for being part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we cover your team every single day. This just happens to be the West Virginia Mountaineers. You heard me sneeze. Yeah, I sneezed during the intro. I meant to mute the button, but I couldn't. For those of you listening on podcast, I do address the comments every now and again if I see them. So just be prepared for that. Sometimes I shoot from the hip. It just depends on what's going on. So Wren Baker's patience is being tested. And I wasn't expecting to get this info dumped today, but I'm glad I did. So I got a text earlier this afternoon. I've been pontificating what to do with it. This person did not say whether or not or I could talk about this, so I just went ahead and ran with it. I sent several texts asking if I could speak, and obviously I'm prefacing all this with this because if they watch this, I want them to understand, like, I waited 5 hours, so, at the end of the day, you didn't respond, and so that's what it is. And for those of you curious as to who this could be, obviously I can't speak on that. One hint that I will give, though, is just look back at my episodes and see if you can figure out anybody. So because I have definitely had people connected to all different parts of the university on this show, and I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to give too much away, but it's definitely about as good as it can get. I was really shocked to get the info and started obviously questioning why I got the info, but I got it. So the press conference yesterday had a lot to do with some, from what I understand, some aggravation. And it's at a point now to where most believe it can still be salvaged, believe it or not, but don't believe it will be. That it's going to be a situation to where it's like can't get out of his own way type thing. As far as personally, from what I understand, they all get along great. This is a brass tack situation. This is they're going to kill me if I don't kill you type situation. It's almost, and I just said this yesterday on the show. I said, look, it's about to rub off on other people if something isn't done about this. It's been going on for 6 years. We've said it and said it and said it. At some point, this is going to start to rub off on other people, right? Like at some point, even though you didn't hire this guy, not firing this guy is the same thing. It's the same thing as endorsing him. It's just like, if I had the ability to impeach Donald Trump, I'm sure there would be some people that would be mad whether I did or I didn't, right? But like, let's say he was really bad at his job. Well, if I didn't, then I would be by association, people would be mad at me, right? Similarly with this, that was probably not a great comparison, but you get what I'm trying to say here. People are, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess it depends on how you look at it, because I think about the assistants have done a good job. The Chad Scotts, the Matt Moores, the AJ Jacksons, the Coons. I think he's done a good job, even though the defense didn't perform that well yesterday. Baylor scored a bunch on everybody. And it's just a little frustrating to see. Now, as far as what is going to actually happen in this is another part of it with the buyout. So from what I gather, obviously the buyout is kind of big for West Virginia. And it's a situation to where there are people that are capable of buying this thing out. And I think that the university would rather probably pay it themselves, because what happens is when somebody helps you pay a buyout, they get say in the next guy, right? That, like, just for argument's sake, let's say Ken Kendrick comes in and says, hey, here is $25 million. I'm not saying he's going to give that much. I'm just throwing a number out there. Here's $25 million. Do what you can with this. Make sure the next guy's got some money, whatever. I doubt he would give that much, but that's just an example. Then you don't think he wants some control or say in the next guy? He does, and that's the roulette you kind of play with somebody, with donors, with just one donor specifically paying a buyout. So that's unfortunate too. So you kind of have to take the things how they come. I don't know what's going to happen with the buyout, but I do know that they're going to need help to pay it. I don't know how they're going to get it. The university is going to have to help the athletic department, obviously. And actually, matter of fact, Tony Caridi and those guys are on Three Guys today. They were talking just about that. At which point because if West Virginia has to do this, fire Neal Brown, it's going to hurt the next coach. That's just what it is. So the next coach is going to have less because of the money situation. And I think this is the big hesitancy on their part, is like, well, what if we can give Neal Brown more by not firing him, and this new thing coming up next year? I'm probably saying too much, but what if we can give Neal Brown more than he has? What if we can give him more than a 7th or 8th best NIL in the Big 12? And maybe we can give him a little bit better than that, maybe 3rd or 4th. Most coaches are better coaches with better players, right? And I think that's been like kind of the prevailing thought, is he's obviously not the kind of coach that's going to lift a program up on his own with just sheer coaching ability and the talent development and maybe recruiting. But he is the kind of coach that offensively, especially with good enough players, is skilled enough to make things happen, right? I mean, look at the players we have on offense this year, guys. It's not great. It's really not. I mean, at times I've wondered how we've scored how we have, because yesterday Garrett did a lot of that for us, and once they figured it out in the second half, a lot of that went away. So I'm just basing 7 or 8 off of what Brad and those guys said on Three Guys today. Those are the words that came out of their mouth. Upper middle was what they said exactly. So whatever it is, it's not great. And so I'm looking at it like, well, it's a fair question. I think it's a fair question. What if we could give him more? Well, of course he would be better. Don't you think he'd love to have somebody outside of Traylon Ray and Hudson Clement at wide receiver this year that's capable of producing? Probably. Like, obviously Bray hasn't worked out because of injury, but other than that, man, it's one of those things where I look at it like, sure, he could be better with more, but at the end of the day, here it is. This is where we are, and we are where we are on the NIL spectrum. I think the 1 year with Hugs and what he was able to do because of who he is inflated everybody's opinion of what our NIL is. And that sucks, because it's probably adversely affected Neal Brown in a lot of ways, because people have thought, hey, we have all this NIL money because of what Huggins got. And that's just not turned out to be the case, apparently. So, and the Fabianich thing too, that hasn't exactly worked out. So it's fair, but yeah. So like I said, if you just look back at previous episodes, obviously you could probably put together some people that I have probably spoken to about this, and that's as far as I can go with it. I wasn't told not to say anything, so I ran with it. Hopefully that doesn't hurt me, but I felt like it was too big of a thing to just sit on, and so I did. On the next segment of Locked On West Virginia, guys, here's what it's going to be about. Neal Brown's excuses, the exact excuses from yesterday. I've gotten them written down. It's a long list of excuses from yesterday from Neal Brown in the press conference. Let's go over just how viable they are and how crazy some of those sound. That's up next on Locked On West Virginia. On this episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, guys. Our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby, it's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or an agonizing second overtime, which is why they've created the Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot with a special flavor called Fan Fuel. The energy shot made just for super fans like us, the fans who are first in the parking lot and last to leave. We see you. You know what else gave me a bit of West Virginia fan fuel this week? That moment when Neal Brown went in his press conference and gave me some content. I don't know if that works or not. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for a tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here to keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Well, whatever it is, do it with 5 Hour Energy. Available on 5hourenergy.com, and it's shipped nationwide. All right, guys, what is up? Welcome back into Locked On West Virginia. So Neal's excuses, man. Yesterday I was listening to the press conference, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to listen to it again today to see if I was being unfair because I was so mad yesterday. And I was. For me, it's, we finally had a little bit of hope yesterday. And I think, here we go. As soon as Neal gets into a big game scenario, and everything we needed to happen yesterday outside of one game pretty much happened. Kansas State lost. It's just unfortunate, man. So, BYU lost. I don't know if that's good or bad, but they did. So, okay. He led off pretty much, within the first minute or so. I predicted this yesterday on the show without seeing the press conference. Traylon Ray's injury and the emotional impact. Now, I think, yeah, that probably did have an impact, but this is football, and I think injuries happen. And, you look back to, somebody just mentioned, Kuz just mentioned the Bills in the comments. When that happened to the former Pitt player with the Bills with his neck, things like that happen on the football field. It's a violent game, and I'm not trying to sound cold. Yesterday I definitely said, hey, look, I wish the best for Traylon Ray. It's a sad situation. I hate it, and I do. But on the other side, it's two sides of the same coin. You still have to get up and play the game, unless somebody is injured to the point to where they're going to die or something. Most of the time you just keep playing, right? And so if you have to keep playing, why not be the best of what you can be? And the best coaches get teams to where they should be. In this situation, I feel like Neal was using that lightly. Not great, not huge, but to me it came off as just a little bit of an excuse because he mentioned it more than once. And I'll tell you where I wrote it down because he mentioned it more than once. The snap infraction on fourth down, he said that they were going to score if not for the snap infraction on fourth down, which is one of the 2 fourth downs that they missed on in the first half, I think. And then the second of those fourth downs, they would have scored on fourth to Cole Taylor had Garrett not gotten bumped. And the 3 guys did a great job of breaking this down today, which it was nice to actually hear him criticize just a little bit. They said, look, it seems like maybe this was, I apologize. This was Mike and Chris that said this from years. It seems like every time a play doesn't go his way, something happened to prevent it from, there were always going to be a score though. It's always, we were about to score this touchdown. And, and that's exactly what he said we were going to score, but he got bumped. Well, it's football and they're doing something too. So, I just put that out there. We had too many drops, especially on fourth down. He obviously said credit them. He criticized Shadon Brown, which I thought was interesting, although he didn't mention him by name. He did mention that they had tried several things, that people aren't turning around looking for the ball. This is just my interpretation now. Now, maybe somebody disagrees and says, hey, that's not on Shadon Brown, or maybe he wasn't saying anything about Shadon Brown. I think he was. And look, you can, to me, it's a slick way to try to, maybe subliminally is a bad word, but to try to plant thoughts in other people's heads. It's, look, I've got this crappy coach on my team that I've been we've done everything we can with the secondary. It's not working. And I come back to, you recruited them. So anytime a coach says, like, we got to play better, the first thing I always think of is, you recruited them. Like, these are you brought them in, you and Leslie, like, you signed off on these guys and they're not playing well. And I don't buy it. I can't buy it. Like, it's one thing if you were down to your second or third guy and you're struggling. Okay, everybody gets that, because not everybody's going to be starter level. But these are, they do have a couple guys out, but we're talking about guys that you brought into the portal that were supposed to be good. So let's see, what else have I got here? He mentioned the injury again, about several minutes into the press conference, but citing that emotional impact yet again. He called Hudson Clement really good, said he was cramping though, and that's the reason he slowed down in the second half. I felt like, I think it's a stretch to call Hudson Clement really good. Maybe I'm basing it off of receivers past, because I consider Stedman Bailey, Taven Austin, J.D. Woods, guys like that to be pretty good, or Kevin White, even Kaiser White. Hudson's, is he good enough to play at this level? Yeah. Do I consider him a number one receiver? I don't. I'm sorry. He has a breakout game here and there where you're like, okay. And he is still pretty young, so maybe by the time he's a senior, he'll be that. But I just can't sit here and say, like, hey, he's just this great player, because I don't think so. And he said he was, he said that he was cramping in the second half, and that's why he wasn't playing as well. He also mentioned the bad tackling. This is all in one press conference, by the way. He also mentioned the bad tackling. I get it. They're asking him questions. He's responding. I just wrote down things that were either borderline or absolutely excuses. The bad tackling that he mentioned, which has been a problem for several weeks now. That's another thing that bothers me when coaches say that. Like, we're 10 games in. If there's still bad tackling going on, it's got to be a coaching problem at this point. Or what? Or it's a Joe's problem, and then it's a recruiting problem. Which one is it? Sure, players get the blame too, and they're getting paid. But you brought the player in, you developed the player, you recruited the player. Like, to me, that's three blame factors for the coach, one blame factor for the player. That's just how I look at it. The player's just been brought in. He's trying to do his job. Probably it's not like he's not trying on purpose. And then you get to, let's see. I really had to sigh big whenever he mentioned Garrett's touchdown to end the game. It was, it's garbage time. There's 10 seconds left, and he really complimented the crap out of that throw. It's a garbage time touchdown. It shouldn't even count on the stat sheet. Really, in my opinion. He exaggerated, by the way. I want to make sure before I say this one out loud. Let me just make sure. But I'm pretty sure he exaggerated. Let me make sure, though. And it was not a small exaggeration at that. Let's see, player stats. West Virginia. Yeah, he definitely exaggerated. So Garrett Green ran for 129 yards. He said that Garrett ran for 150 yards. Like, he was trying to say how well he did in the situation. He ran for 150 yards. He had all this. He ran for 129 yards. I know 150 sounds better, but that's my point with him. Whenever it comes to a player he's married to or likes, he will go through every length to make them sound better than they actually are in some cases. when a guy like Nico last week had nine completions on 15 attempts. That's all you gave him, 43 plays. And you started laying the groundwork right after the game, how bad it was when you only had 43 plays because the defense scored 3 times or 2 times or whatever it was. So the offense just didn't have the amount of plays. He didn't get 40 throws or 39 throws like Garrett got. I just don't feel like the two are being judged fairly, and I wouldn't be surprised if Nico's family isn't pretty pissed. So, that's just my opinion, though. Maybe some might disagree with that, but I think Garrett definitely had a lot to do with why we were successful yesterday. I want to say that. I do. But he's also making up stuff, like talking about, like if you're having to say the throw to end the game and then add yardage onto what he did, like it's just, you're trying too hard to. Then he went on a rant about the offense and how it didn't take advantage of opportunities in the third, like he's not the one calling the plays. That's what I wrote down. Yeah, so he went on a rant about the offense. He said we can't put the game together. We can't put a game together. We can't marry the offense and the defense at the same time. And he went on this huge rant about the offense and how it didn't take advantage of opportunities in the third, like he's not the one calling the plays. I know I said that twice, but unbelievable, isn't it? And probably one of the biggest things that another thing about him that bothers me, and there's just a lot there is nowadays. Trotter didn't play 2 series because he missed practice all week, but he was able to play. And we're just a different defense with him out there. We're a better defense with him out there. And they scored the first couple drives. Although, yes, I will admit absolutely that Reed Carrico played really well. He did. He played really well yesterday. But not putting Trotter in the game because he didn't practice all week, this falls back to what I said yesterday. He's the kind, he believes that there's no such thing as a gamer, somebody that can just play well in the game. There's some people that play better than they practice. There's some people that practice better than they play. He doesn't believe in that. He believes that you play how you practice. And I just don't believe that. I think there are some dudes that are gamers. You've got Johnny Manziel's and players like that are just a gamer. They just, when the lights are brightest, they turn it on. Anyway, not playing a guy 2 series because he didn't practice all week for whatever reason, injury or whatever. If he's available to play and he's your starter, I just feel like you play him. Maybe I'm being too harsh on my criticism there, but he's your best player at that position. Why would you, when you're in this situation you're in, fighting for bowl eligibility, even give one shred of an advantage to them for even one drive? Flat out. So, up next on Locked On West Virginia, guys, we'll put a bow on this episode, and I'll recap everything that I just talked about earlier. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets, but that's if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more. On the same page, you place your bets at FanDuel.com. Join today. Remember, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. And this episode is also brought to you by Game Time, guys. Game Time is where it's at when it comes to the ticketing industry. Curated deals make it easier to find the best prices on seats. Super deals. Seats before you buy, you can look at them, 360-degree panoramic view. There's a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Make sure you toggle the feature on that shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. and take this to the bank. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create the account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off, and download the app. And then ask yourself this: what time is it? It's game time. All right, guys. Here we are. So I got a text at about 1 o'clock today from somebody really close to the situation in the building. I'll just say that, I guess. Detailing to me some things that Wren Baker is kind of at a breaking point. I think it's not hard to see, obviously, just from the fan side of things, that why that is, but I think Neal Brown's probably going to get fired. I do. I think there's very little he can do to prevent this at this point, outside of winning the last 2 games, and I don't think they're going to do it. Now, if they go 7-5, maybe this changes over the next 2 weeks. For the way I understand it is they're looking for a reason. They've been looking for a reason to keep him, and he just hasn't given it to them. That's the plainest way I can put it. So, I sent multiple text messages to this person, trying to ask for more, trying to ask for permission to what I can say. I didn't get much. So, I just kind of ran with what I had. And what I have is the words breaking point were used. I use it in the thumbnail. So, I'm frustrated. Yeah, Coos, I am frustrated because I wanted more. Number one, I don't like to be left out in the cold on. You gave me a little bit. Now you left me hanging here. And so I'm just bringing you guys what I got. I just know that there's frustration in the athletic department and around the facility. There's players that are probably not going to be here next year, whether Brown's here or not. And overall, it was a bad weekend in the athletic department. I think basketball played a part, probably too. People probably wanted us to play better against Pitt. And so these things compound when you're in charge of an athletic department and all in one weekend. Now, this is precluding what happened today in soccer. You lose your biggest rival, and then all the teams you need to lose in front of your coach that you basically stuck your neck out for. You didn't hire him, but now you are a part of his tenure because you've extended him. Loses a game in which, if you win it, you're in the driver's seat almost for sure for the Big 12 title game. And talk about one of your biggest ha-ha-has ever, right? I mean, can you imagine the ha-ha-ha Neal Brown could have had here? And all you got to do is you don't have to beat, gosh, I'm struggling here, Kansas State, or you don't have to beat Iowa State, you don't have to beat Penn State. You just got to beat Baylor. And sure, they'd won 3 in a row. Yeah, great, man. But they also lost 3 in a row at one time this year. Why is it that we're always the team that gets Ollie Gordoned? Like last year, Mike Gundy and them, they figured it out against who? Against us. Here we are again. At Baylor, Bryson Washington and company made him look like the next Ollie Gordon. So I guess I'm just saying I can see why that Wren Baker's at this point. He probably, obviously he can't be public about it, but that's what it is, and look at me. I relapsed. I'm back on the do again, Coos. I'm back on the do. Bounce back between Gatorade and Mountain Dew here. When I'm most stressed, I have to resort to dew. I know. I'm weak. Thank you guys for joining. I wish I could talk a little longer. I could rant for days about it. But I think, there are solutions to problems if you choose to look at it that way. I think that's, as a fan base, as fans, that's what we need to do as fans if we can. I include myself with this. I'm preaching to myself, guys. Let's try to become solution oriented here, and let's just be a part of the solution and not the problem. Which, that means, try not to call players out. At the end of the day, they're giving their all every week. I understand the frustration of the coaches and everything, but let's just try to be as positive as we can about this, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to put a positive spin on this, and really I just can't. I'm sitting here trying to, and it's just not working. At the end of the day, I guess we're 6 years into this, and that gets said a lot. I know it does, and I'm sure people get tired of hearing it. But 6 years is over half a decade. 6 years is, how old were you 6 years ago? I know how old I was. I was 33. How old were you? A lot of you guys are in your 40s or your 30s or your 50s 6 years ago. Maybe your 20s or teens. So life has gone on. People have had kids and marriages and divorces. People passed away. It's been long enough. Can we please make a decision on this, Wren? That's all we're asking for. And if I'm wrong, if the information I got is wrong, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear that. I'd love to have any kind of vote of confidence or not. I don't think it's wrong. Why would this dude do this? Unless he's just trying to leak info. Or I understand we get used, and if I got used, I got used. But at the end of the day, guys, I tell you guys everything pretty much that I'm allowed to tell, right? I tell you about my personal life. I tell you about my recovery. I tell you about times I've been in trouble in my life. I tell you about pretty much everything I can that I'm allowed to. So the last thing you got to worry about with me is transparency. I mean, if that's what you're here for, if you come here because you're a West Virginia fan, I hope you stay here because I'm transparent with you. And just know that I love you guys. I love this fan base. I love being a part of it. I love being a West Virginia fan, even though it's heartbreaking sometimes. So come here to voice your frustrations. Come here to voice whatever you need to voice. And I'll be here to listen. I'll be in the comments with you, and we can talk about it. And that's where we're at on this. Thanks for joining today, guys. Wish we could stay longer. Thanks, Coos, for joining the chat. Make sure to check him out over on Coos' Corner. Subscribe here. Hit that like button if you're not already doing that. Share this video out. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm sure I'll figure out something to talk about. Maybe we can do some coaching search stuff or something like that. I know he's not fired, but those are fun to do. We'll figure something to do. I'm sure there'll be some news. Until then, guys, I'm out.